My name is Sam and today I'm going to share with you the most horrifying true crime case. Imagine a true crime story that's so terrifying and creepy, it's like something out of a movie. Well, this one is real and it also has a movie based on some of its events, but I'm here to tell you the full story and it's a big reminder that we need to be super careful about who we trust, even if they are family. Stick with me as we dive into the details together and figure out how to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe from such people.
Gordon Stewart Northcott was born on November 9, 1906 in Bladworth, Canada. He was the golden child of Sarah Louise and her husband Cyrus George. Their family moved to British Columbia where Gordon grew up and went to school. Gordon was very loved by his mother, and she would do anything for him. He was also very popular at school. His intelligence and good looks drew a lot of people close to him. During his school years, he found a talent in playing the piano. He even made money by playing venues around town. By his late teens, he was well loved by the townspeople, made a lot of friends, had a budding music career and his whole life ahead of him. But all this changed when he turned 18 and his family decided that they are all moving to Los Angeles, California. During the 1920s, the U.S. economy had surged and L.A. was a place of entertainment and big money. They thought that it would be the perfect place for Gordon. During his late teens, Gordon had developed a flamboyant personality and spoke with a feminine voice. He wore bright clothes and always maintained his image. This kind of personality was generally scoffed at during the 1920s, but L.A. was accepting of his style. He was a flashy musician, and L.A. seemed perfect for him, as there were plenty of opportunities available for him. Gordon was now 18, and it was time for him to be an adult and choose a career. When Gordon's parents asked him what he wanted to do, they were completely shocked. Gordon said he wanted to raise chickens out in the countryside. This was very shocking to Gordon's parents, as they had never seen him get his hands dirty. He was only ever interested in fashion and playing the piano. He had never done a hard day's work his entire life. Gordon reassured his parents that this is what he wanted to do more than anything else. Eventually his parents caved in and bought a property out in Wineville, California, in an isolated and desert place. The closest neighbors would be several acres away. Gordon and his father began to build a small ranch house and chicken coops in the property. Gordon promised his parents that he would become self-sufficient and make a living for himself, and since he was their golden child, they believed every word he said. Soon after they began to build the ranch, they realized that it would be very hard for just the two of them to finish the job. So Gordon's 13-year-old nephew Sanford Clark was sent by his mother to help his uncle Gordon. Sanford left his hometown in Canada and came to Wineville in 1926. The work prospects back home were very low and Sanford didn't get along well with his mother. So she sent Sanford to live with his uncle Gordon. She thought that it would be a good experience for him and that he would learn some discipline while working in the chicken coops. At first, he was only going to stay there until the ranch was complete, but Gordon convinced Sanford's mother to let him come back and stay to help him with the chicken coops, as his father had gone back to L.A., and he didn't want to work alone at the chicken coops. Sanford begged his mother to not send him back. Even his sister Jessie was against it. But Sanford's mom didn't listen and sent him right back to Wineville to live with his uncle. Sanford reluctantly went back to Wineville to work at the chicken coops. He fed the chickens, swept the floors, and cooked dinner, and tried his best to help his uncle Gordon. This continued for a couple of months until one night Gordon woke Sanford up from his sleep and led him into one of the chicken coops, where he started beating him continuously and mercilessly. Sanford screamed and tried to defend himself, but it was of no use. He couldn't overpower Gordon. After he was done beating Sanford, he locked him up in the chicken coop till the next day. The abuse continued every day after that. Gordon would beat him. Sometimes he even used tools from the farm to beat Sanford. But soon physical abuse wasn't enough for Gordon. It quickly escalated to sexual abuse. Every night Gordon would beat and rape Sanford out in the chicken coops. Sanford would scream his heart out, but no one was going to answer his screams or be able to save him. Gordon would then brainwash Sanford by saying that his life could be much worse, and that he was living in the U.S. illegally, and if the police found out that he was an illegal immigrant, he would be sentenced to death. Being young, Sanford didn't know any better and believed him. He accepted that this was his fate. So the abuse continued, and on top of it, he was forced to do most of the work. The only food that he ate was the leftover scraps from Gordon. He became so malnutrition that his hair began to fall out. He was basically like Gordon's personal slave. To cover his tracks, Gordon forced Sanford to write letters back to his family and tell them about how much fun he was having at school and at the chicken coops. But this was clearly not the case. Soon a year had passed, and Sanford was now 14 years old, and Gordon realized he wasn't his type any longer, and he needed younger victims to fulfill his sexual fantasies. So one day on January 1928, Gordon left the ranch telling Sanford that he would return in about a week. Gordon said that he was going to LA to visit his parents. He knew that he had completely broken Sanford and that he wouldn't try to escape. After a week, when Gordon returned from LA, he got out of his car with a huge smile on his face. This surprised Sanford, as he had only ever seen Gordon enraged. Sanford went over to greet his uncle. That's when Gordon pulled out a sliver bucket from the back of his car and told Sanford to take a peek inside. Sanford looked inside and quickly drew back. Gordon forced him to look again, and Sanford saw through the bloody mess the decapitated head of a young boy. Gordon told Sanford that he had killed the boy in self-defense. But Sanford knew that wasn't the case, as he could see the thrilled look on Gordon's face. Gordon then opened the trunk of his car and showed Sanford the lifeless body of the boy and shoved the bucket into Sanford's arms and told him to burn the head. He said that authorities would not be able to identify a body without its head. The next day, he dumped the body over a local bridge. The authorities soon found the body, but they could not figure out his true identity. After murdering his first victim, Gordon's enthusiasm for violence escalated, and he felt unstoppable. A month later, a boy from LA disappears, which leads us to the disappearance of Walter Collins. On March 10, 1928, 9-year-old Walter Collins went to watch a movie LA by himself. It wasn't out of the ordinary for a kid to travel alone at that time. Walter was soon lost in the big city, and after several days of not seeing him, his mother, Christine Collins, filed a missing person report with the LAPD. The issue of missing children had become a public spectacle in Los Angeles, and when the tale of Walter Collins made national headlines, the LAPD came under fire, and the police realized they had to find him right away. Only 3 months prior, a 12-year-old girl named Marion Parker had been abducted and brutally murdered in Los Angeles. Her case became a local drama centered on the police department's incompetence. The LAPD's standing among the people had declined, so the pressure was really on. Police Captain J.J. Jones was desperate to find Walter alive. Reports came in from all over the country that claimed that they had seen Walter, but most of them were fake. 5 months after Walter went missing, the LAPD finally got a promising lead. Reports of a lost, malnourished-looking boy the same age and description of Walter. But this boy was in a small town in Illinois 2,000 miles away from LA, and he told the authorities a roundabout story of his kidnapping. They contacted Christine and had her confirm the boy's identity, and transported him to L.A. Christine was very happy to see Walter again, and J.J. Jones closed the case, and newspapers praised the LAPD for their success. J.J. Jones was finally relieved that his department had a win after the failures on their previous cases. But their joy didn't last long, because few weeks later Christine Collins returned to the police station and claimed that the boy they had found was not her son Walter. J.J. Jones assured her that he was indeed her son Walter, but she insisted that it wasn't her son. She claimed that the boy looked like her son, but some of his features were different. The police told her that it was because he aged, and that it was normal for a 9-year-old boy's appearance to change over a few months. She told them that his behavior had changed too, as Walter was always well behaved and called her mother, but this boy was a nuisance and called her Ma. But the police insisted again that this was her son, and they weren't going to take no for an answer, as after the spotlight of national news. Captain J.J. Jones was not going to embarrass his department with another failure, and he even claimed that Christine was trying to make him look bad. He even went as far as to accuse Christine of trying to neglect her duties as a mother. The case remained closed, and J.J. Jones wouldn't budge. So Christine obtained the dental records of Walter and compared them to the boy's, and she had several family members and friends testify that this boy was not Walter. But the LAPD fought back and even conducted tests to prove that this boy was indeed Walter Collins. They dropped the boy off at random locations in town, and the boy managed to find his way back home very easily, and they even got the family dog to respond to the boy, proving that the boy was its owner. But Christine wouldn't back down because she knew that the boy was not her son. However, police questioned why it had taken Christine so long to come forward and tell them that the boy wasn't her son, given that she had lived with this boy for about 3 weeks prior to coming forward. Some suggest that Christine was under so much grief that she would accept anyone as her son, but soon she realized that the boy wasn't her son, and that the real Walter was out there somewhere. So she fought to prove that the boy wasn't her son. But J.J. Jones couldn't take it anymore, and he had become so stubborn about the case that he locked Christine up in a psych ward in L.A. under Code 12, a law that allowed him to send almost anyone there. He would rather throw a woman into a mental institution than to accept that his department had made a mistake. Christine suffered both mental and physical harassment from the staff while living in the psych ward, and she even took medication she didn't need because she was completely certain that the boy was not her son, and she wasn't crazy. After some time, guilt came over the boy that claimed to be Walter Collins, and in a handwritten letter to Captain J.J. Jones, the boy revealed that his name was not Walter Collins, and that it was actually Arthur Hutchins, and that he had ran away from home after his mother died, and someone from Illinois told that he looked like the missing boy from L.A. Arthur saw the opportunity and took it. He had always wanted to go to L.A. to meet his favorite actor Tom Mix. The boy's confession solved one mystery, and the LAPD released Christine from the psych ward, but this meant that the real Walter Collins was still out there somewhere. So according to Sanford, Gordon had kidnapped Walter Collins on the night of March 10th, after he was walking alone to his home from the movie theater. Gordon lured him to his car and brought him to the ranch and locked him in one of the chicken coops. Walter became the next victim of Gordon. He beat Walter and did many other unspeakable things to the poor boy. Walter screamed and cried. Sanford was cooking dinner and could hear Walter's screams and cries, but he knew he couldn't do anything. After Gordon was done with Walter, he entered the house covered in sweat and blood. He sat down at the table, and Sanford served him dinner. Walter, crying and screaming, would continue throughout the night. A heavy sense of guilt came down on Sanford as he tried to sleep, but on the other hand, he was relieved that he was not the victim of Gordon's abuses anymore. Ever since Gordon moved on to younger boys, Gordon didn't lay a finger on Sanford, and even allowed him to sleep on the couch instead of being locked out in the chicken coop like before. Sometime after Gordon's mother, Sarah Louise Northcott, made a surprise visit to the ranch. Sanford was standing out there in the front yard when the Northcott's car came up along. She then got out of the car and greeted Sanford and asked him where Gordon was. This became a crucial moment in Sanford's mind, since they never had any visitors and Gordon was nowhere to be seen. Sanford jumped on the opportunity that presented itself and told Gordon's mother that he was over at one of the chicken coops. This was a lie, and Sanford had directed Gordon's mother to the one where Walter Collins was imprisoned. Even though finding a kid bruised and covered in blood should alert any sane person to call the police, Sanford doubted that this would work at all. It crossed his mind that even though she would find Walter, she wouldn't do anything about it. He remembered that Sarah Northcott loves her son to death and would do anything for him. As Sarah Lewis opened the door to the coop, she was absolutely horrified by what she saw. Young Walter Collins laying on the floor, bloodied and bruised, and with his clothes filled with holes and covered in blood. His eyes were red and swollen, and he could barely raise himself off the wooden floor. Gordon's mother couldn't believe her eyes. She didn't even ask questions as she saw the helpless boy lying on the ground. She quickly pieced together what happened and what was happening at the farm all along. Gordon's parents had always wondered why he wanted to buy a farm out in the middle of nowhere, or why he wanted to raise chickens instead of pursuing his passion for music. But as she saw the battered boy spitting up blood all over the chicken coop floor, it all made sense to her. Gordon wanted the ranch for its remoteness, and he wanted the separate chicken coops so that he could imprison his victims. Sarah stormed towards the ranch house, filled with rage and sadness, looking for Gordon. She could believe that her golden child was actually a monster. When she finally found Gordon, she screamed at the top of her lungs for hours, and Sanford listened through the walls. Gordon cried and wailed as his mother berated him. She couldn't fathom that her favorite son would turn out to be like this. Gordon begged his mother to understand and promised that it was a one-time thing and that he would never do it again. He even promised her that he would return Walter to his family and ask them for forgiveness. But the crying and screaming went on for hours, and eventually they got quiet. Sanford thought that this could finally be the end of the horrors happening at the ranch. He thought that Gordon's mother would finally be able to put an end to this nightmare. Later in the night, Gordon and his mother woke Sanford up in the middle of the night and told him to come with them. He got up from the sofa, and then they headed towards the chicken coop. Sanford, who had no idea what they were going to do, noticed that Gordon had picked up an axe on the way. They stopped right before the entrance to the coop where Walter was held up, and Sarah Louise came up to Sanford and told him that they were all going to kill Walter together, as they couldn't risk Gordon returning Walter to his family, as he could get arrested. Sarah Louise realized that there was something seriously wrong with her son, but she didn't want to get arrested, even though her son wasn't her perfect child and had now become a monster. She was still going to protect him. Sanford's doubts had come true. Sarah's love for his son was too much. She believed that all of them killing Walter together was the best option, as they would all be complicit in the murder, and no one would want to rat each other out. Sanford knew he had no say in the matter. He knew he was dealing with a family full of psychos. All three of them went inside the coop where Walter Collins laid unconscious on the floor. Gordon approached him with the axe in hand, and without any hesitation he swung down on Walter. His skull cracked and blood splattered across the chicken coop walls. He kept on swinging at the boy several more times, bones cracking with each swing and flesh and blood flying across the coop. After he was done, he walked over to Sanford and handed him the axe and told him to continue. Sanford approached Walter's body, and with a heavy heart swung down at the boy. Walter's body had become a mess of flesh and blood, and after Sarah Louise took her turn hacking away, Walter's body was barely recognizable anymore. Gordon then told Sanford to go bury the body. After burying Walter's body, all three of them agreed to never tell anyone about what happened that night. Walter was no more, and Gordon promised his mother that he would stop kidnapping and killing boys. But of course he was lying. He had become addicted to bloodshed and murder, and he wasn't going to stop now. 2 months after killing Walter, Gordon went to town and kidnapped the Winslow brothers, Lewis age 12 and Nelson age 10. They were on their way home from their parents' yacht club. He lured the boys by promising them that he would take them to his chicken coops to see his chickens. Being adventurous little boys, a ranch filled with chickens sounded fun. Once they got to his ranch, Gordon fulfilled his promise by showing them the chickens, but while they were distracted, he shoved them into separate coops and locked them in there. The boys cried and screamed from inside the coops. Sanford heard this and understood what was going on. Gordon had broken his promise to his mother, and the horrors at the ranch would start again. Sanford believed his nightmares would never end. He didn't know how many more boys would be raped, tortured, and murdered by his uncle, and now Gordon's parents wouldn't turn him in, and Sanford couldn't escape from the ranch. There was no hope for Sanford, and he couldn't do anything to help the boys. Amidst all this madness, Gordon's anxiety grew. As the Winslow brothers were from a rich family, he thought they had the resources to find the missing boys. Gordon tried to cover his tracks the same way he did with Sanford. He forced the Winslow brothers to write letters to their parents in which they told stories about how they ran away to Mexico and was taken in by a nice lady and spends their days having fun building yachts and planes. But Gordon still thought this wasn't enough. So one night, he woke Sanford up and led him to the chicken coop where Lewis was imprisoned and gave Sanford the axe and said to him, "You're first this time." Sanford knew exactly what his uncle wanted him to do. They went inside the coop where Lewis was curled up, and with less hesitation than before, Sanford struck down on Lewis with the axe. His ribs cracked and blood spewed from his chest. Lewis screamed in pain and agony. Gordon then took the axe from Sanford and finished the job. After that, they went to the coop where the younger brother Nelson was locked up and did the same, except this time Gordon took the first swing from behind him as Sanford distracted him with conversation. They then dragged the bloodied and mutilated bodies out to the yard, and like before, Gordon commanded Sanford to dig 2 graves, and he obeyed him. Except this time, the 2 boys were miraculously still had a little bit of life left in them. They moaned in pain with blood gurgling out of their mouths. Sanford's mind fell into misery and despair as he saw the young bloodied boys, who were still alive, being thrown to their graves by Gordon. He realized he was also becoming a monster just like his uncle. But little did Sanford know his sister Jessie was finally seeing through the fake letters. By this point, it had nearly been 2 years since Sanford started working at the ranch, and when Jessie received the letters, she realized something was terribly wrong because the letters sounded forced and didn't sound like her brother. The letter also mentioned that Sanford regularly went to school, but his writing and spelling weren't improving at all. When Jessie told her mother about this, she scoffed at her. Despite her mother not caring, Jessie knew she had to do something, but she was only a teenager, so she couldn't do much. But she convinced her mother to let her go and see her little brother, and booked a ticket to Wineville, California. When she finally arrived at the ranch, all her suspicions were confirmed. Her younger brother had become withdrawn and scared, and the way that their Uncle Gordon treated both her and her brother raised her concerns. She felt as though there were some secret horrors being hidden within this ranch, and the only way to truly find out was to speak with Sanford in private, away from the ears of Gordon. Over a few days, Sanford told Jessie all the horrific things that were happening at that ranch. Jessie could barely comprehend the terrors that her brother was telling her, and she quickly left the ranch. But before she left, she told her brother that she would do everything she can to get him out of there. Once she returned to Canada, she called the American consulate and told them about the horrors happening at the ranch. She also mentioned that her brother was also there, and that he was an illegal immigrant living in the U.S., hoping that even if they investigate the ranch, they would at least retrieve her brother and send him back to his home in Canada. By this time, Gordon had suspected that Sanford must have told his sister and thought that she would inform the authorities about the murders. So one night Gordon went out to the field and dug up the graves of the boys he murdered, took out their remains, and went and dumped them in a desert. Sanford waited day in and day out for a way to escape the ranch, and on August 31st, 1928, when Gordon peeked out the window, he saw multiple police squad cars pulling up the long dirt road to the Northcott ranch. Sanford watched as his uncle fell into complete panic. Gordon rushed over to Sanford, grabbed him by the collar and told him that he needed to stall the police, and that if he told them anything about what had happened, he would kill him. Gordon shoved Sanford to the side, and quickly grabbed a few things and rushed out the back door straight to the far-off trees where the police couldn't see him. When the police arrived at the ranch, they found Sanford Clark alone sitting quietly on the sofa. The boy looked awfully skinny, and he was losing his hair, and for a teenager, he looked like he was 50 years old. At first Sanford stalled police, as he was told, but eventually, when Gordon was long gone, he realized he was finally out of his uncle's clutches. Sanford made the police promise to protect him, and he would only open up to them once he knew he was safe from his uncle. The police assured his safety and brought him to the station where they fed him, and then asked him what had happened at the ranch. Sanford told them everything with no hesitation, and after the questioning the police brought Sanford back to the Northcott ranch. Gordon's whereabouts were still unknown at the time, so they needed more evidence. Sanford helped the police identify where the victims were buried. The police dug up several human bones, but no complete human bodies were found at the property. They also found a bloodied axe and some personal effects belonging to missing children. The police also questioned the neighbors, and as it turned out, through all the years of abuse in the ranch the neighbors knew about it. They admitted that they could hear the screams at the night, but figured it was none of their business. Abuse in 1920s was an accepted form of parenting, and they thought that Sanford was Gordon's son. They claimed that they weren't aware of any sexual or physical abuse, so they turned a blind eye. With Sanford's testimony, the police quickly pieced together a strong case against the Northcotts. Gordon was able to flee Wineville with his mother not long after the police arrived at his ranch, but the cops were able to find the Northcotts hiding in a small property in Canada, and they were immediately extradited them to the U.S. for questioning. With Sanford's confession and all the evidence against them, the Northcotts looked very guilty. Sarah Lewis quickly confessed to the murder of Walter Collins in an attempt to protect her son from prosecution. She didn't know that there were other victims Gordon was suspected of killing, and while Gordon was interrogated separately, he first confessed to killing 5 boys, but later insisted that he hadn't killed anyone. Sarah Lewis also took back her confession, but then later confessed again. It became really clear to the investigators that the Northcotts were a family of pathological liars, and they both went to trial separately. Sarah Lewis was convicted for the murder of Walter on December 31st, 1928, and was sentenced to life in prison. Her trial was quick and straightforward, but the people were more interested in Gordon's trial. He had made the front page news across the nation, and not many serial killers came into the spotlight during the 1920s, so the public was very interested in his case. Gordon was charged with killing the unidentified Mexican boy and the Winslow brothers, and his trial lasted 27 days. For the duration of the trial, Gordon acted strange and withdrawn, and he would make several conflicting statements, which quickly gave him away as a pathological liar, and on February 8, 1929, he was found guilty and was sentenced to death by hanging. While he was in prison awaiting his execution, he contacted Walter Collins' mother Christine by telegram. Gordon told her that if she came to visit him, he would tell her everything he knew about her son. Christine had previously been released from the psych ward after Arthur Hutchins had confessed to not being her son. She had also won a lawsuit against Captain J.J. Jones, and he was suspended from duty, and was also ordered to pay Christine $10,800, but he never paid her a dime, and all this time she still believed that her son Walter was out there somewhere, and she was desperate to find out what had happened to her son. She went to visit Gordon at the day of his execution, hoping he would tell her where her son is. On October 2, 1930, she appeared outside of Gordon's cell waiting for an answer. She greeted Gordon, but he turned his back to her and told her that he didn't know anything about her son and that he was innocent. Even his final moments, Gordon Northcott never came clean. The day of his execution, as he was walked towards the gallows, he became weak and cowardly. He asked the guards if it would hurt when they pulled the lever. He also asked them if they would put a blindfold on him, because he is scared of looking at the noose. He begged the guards not to make him walk any faster, and he struggled to make his way towards the gallows. When he was on top of the execution platform, he cried out to the audience and asked someone to say a prayer for him. The executioner put the noose around Gordon's neck, and moments later there was a new addition to hell. After his execution, when his cell was being cleaned, they found several notes, some claiming that his father had killed Walter, and some said that he had never met the boy, but in the end Gordon was a liar, and he would say anything if it meant his freedom. His mother Sarah was paroled after 12 years despite her life sentence, and she died in 1944, and Sanford Clark was never tried for murder, since they believed that he had acted under the threat of death, and he was sent to a state school for delinquent youth, from where he was released early for his exceptional behavior. He later served in World War II, and despite the atrocities that Sanford had witnessed and been a part of, he went on to live an exemplary life and passed away in 1991. The town of Wineville had been so ashamed of the horrors on the Northcott ranch that they changed the town's name to Mira Loma. The case was highly publicized, and the murders would constantly be called the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders. It is still unknown who or how many children were murdered at that ranch. Gordon had confessed to abusing and murdering 5 to 20 victims, but he couldn't be trusted, and there was not enough evidence to prove there were more victims. Despite everything, Christine Collins had never stopped believing that her son was alive, even after what she had seen and heard from the police. She believed till the end of her life that her little 9-year-old boy was out there somewhere.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This case teaches us an important lesson, that it's crucial to be cautious about trusting anyone, even if they're family. People may seem normal on the outside but could hide harmful intentions deep inside, just like the so-called golden child, Gordon Northcott. Despite appearing normal from the outside, he turned out to be a serial killer and child molester. Sanford, his nephew, could have been easily spared from the trauma if his mom had listened to him. Unfortunately, she ignored his concerns and sent him to his uncle so that he could be fixed. The takeaway from this case is that we all need to pay attention to our loved ones and shield them from potential dangers. Unlike in the 1900s, today's world is far more advanced in technology and social interactions, having both risks and ways to protect ourselves. For this purpose, I've found some products designed for self-protection and home defense. These are essential in today's society to ensure the safety of ourselves and our loved ones. The first product that I've found is this multifunctional self-defense pen. Yes, you heard that right, a pen that can be used for self-defense. In my opinion, it is one of the best self-defense tools out there, as it is easy to use, easy to carry, it serves many functions, and most importantly, it is legal everywhere, unlike the other self-defense items like tasers and other sharp objects which are banned in some countries and places. In addition to self-defense, this pen can break glass in emergency situations, has a strobe light which can blind potential attackers, it has a built-in whistle, it has built-in screwdrivers, heck, it can even be used as a bottle opener. This truly is the best self-defense product on the market and the best gift idea for your loved ones. I would even buy one for myself because it is so cool. And if you don't like the product or for any other reason, it also has a 180-day money-back guarantee. The price of this wonderful pen is just $39. That may be too much for some, but it is well worth the price. Click on the first link in the description for more information and to buy the pen. You think that amazing pen was all I found? A self-defense tool can only get you very far. The main thing is your physical capabilities. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a 7-foot-tall jacked husky, you just need the right guidance to understand the moves to survive and defend yourselves and your loved ones. But finding the right guidance is hard and time-consuming with all the nonsense and misinformation on the internet. That is why Mike Gillette, a former SWAT commander, an Army paratrooper, an elite tactical trainer and a bodyguard to Fortune 500 executives and film stars like Sylvester Stallone, created this real-life self-defense program for ordinary men and women who want to know how to handle a situation if the worst ever happens to them or their family. Whether you're a college student, a 35-year-old couch potato who's never lifted a fist in anger, or a 70-year-old grandma, the minute you finish this program you'll have the ability to seriously hurt someone. This program is really useful and affordable and has a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. Even if you think you don't need it, you should definitely check out their website because it will definitely change your mind. For more information about this program, click the second link in the description. Now, all the self-defense tools and techniques in the world can only get you back safely to your house, so none of it matters if your own home isn't safe. It's plain to see that there's been a massive trend in recent years towards disrespect for the rule of law. Things are happening that were unthinkable back in the day: home invasions, daylight holdups, endless scams. There are also new home security risks that never used to exist. Anyone can start researching you online and potentially learn where you live, how much money you have, when you will be away from home, and where your vulnerabilities are. You could be being targeted and have no idea what's about to happen until bam, your door comes flying off, and in they come, with guns and machetes. But you can stop them in their tracks, if you know how. One of your most vital priorities in these times is to make your home as secure as it can possibly be for you and your family. This ultimate home defense guide will help you make your house into a safe place for just $17, and yes, it also has a 60-day money-back guarantee, so if you ever regret any of the products and services for any reason, you will have lost nothing. But by choosing to ignore self-defense and home security could lose you everything. If you liked the video, please like, share and subscribe, as I am very lazy and it would motivate me to make more videos. Stay safe out there, peace.